So in this video on microphones, we're going to be looking at how you can remove low rumble, what plosives are, and XLRs,
as well as how we can use polar patterns.
So if we start by looking at removing low rumble from a recording, you should use headphones so that you can hear this best.
When you record vocals, you can often have an issue of having low rumble in the background. In this video, we will look at the ways that you can remove that and the causes for it.
So what causes this? It can be a number of things, but it is most commonly air conditioning, pushing out air or a fan in the room that's picked up by the microphone, or outside traffic noise, particularly lorries or something driving by, or it could even be planes. So, how can we avoid this? Number one is to ensure that all fans and air are turned off. And number two is close the windows to avoid that pollution of noise. And number three, the positioning of the microphone itself. How can we remove this? EQ. You won't be able to remove everything, and it probably would be better to re-record, but using EQ will help clean up a poor recording and make it sound a lot better than it did if you can't go back and re-record. So here we have Logic's channel EQ loaded up on this recording, and we're going to press play with the analyzer turned on so that the graph shows us where this rumble is.
When you record vocals, you can often have an issue of having low rumble in the background. In this video, we will look at the ways that you can remove that.
So here you can see there's a massive spike, a massive bump around up to about 60 hertz. So we're going to use a high pass filter with a really steep slope to remove that. And we're going to go up until where that dip is, just before the voice.
When you record vocals, you can often have an issue of having low rumble in the background.
So next I will bypass that plugin so you can hear the before and after of the high pass filter.
When you record vocals, you can often have an issue of having low rumble in the background. In this video, we will look at the ways that you can remove that and the causes for it.
So if you have low rumble in a recording, the best way to try and get rid of that is to use a high pass filter on an EQ. So in part two, we'll look at plosives and pop filters. When recording the voice, the positioning of the microphone is really important to get a good sound. You should be using a pop filter. Now this is a shield that goes in front of a microphone and is there to absorb air. When you say a word that has a P or a B, pushes a lot of air out of your mouth, that can overload the diaphragm of the microphone and cause it to distort, and you'll get what we call plosives. You can't do anything to remove these after recording. It's really important that you use a pop filter. However, if you don't have a pop filter, you can use the positioning of the microphone to avoid plosives. So I demonstrate now not having a pop filter and the effects that can have. No pop filter. There is currently no pop filter on this microphone. So you'll notice that when I said the word pop, the microphone distorted, you get this horrible popping sound and distorted sound. And if you don't have a pop filter, you can use the positioning of the microphone. So currently the microphone is pointed at the corner of my mouth rather than directly on. So that means that all the air that I push out of my mouth when I say a P or a B word doesn't go directly into the capsule, into the diaphragm, so it doesn't overload it. This is crucial when recording good vocals or good voiceover. It might seem like you should have the microphone pointed directly towards the sound source. And although it is, it's what we call off-axis. On-axis achieves the best signal to noise ratio, so my voice is much louder now. However, without the pop shield or the pop filter, it's very noisy and there's lots of air being blown into the microphone from my voice and my breath, which isn't a pleasing sound and it's going to be very hard to get rid of afterwards. And lastly, we're going to look at XLR cables and why we use them. The cable that you use for a microphone is also very important in the quality of the signal that you capture. Now microphones have an XLR connector. That connector has 3 pins. And we use an XLR cable, which has 3 pins, to connect that microphone to our interface or to our mixing desk. Because it has 3 pins, it means that it has 3 wires running through it. And an XLR cable is what we call a balanced cable. Now, that means that there is going to be less interference and less noise introduced by using that cable. If you were to use an unbalanced cable, like a 1/4-inch jack cable, then any noise that would be introduced wouldn't be eliminated because it's unbalanced. Another reason why you would need to use an XLR cable is if you were using a condenser microphone. And the reason for that is because condenser microphones need phantom power. And an XLR cable is capable of carrying phantom power from your interface or your mixer to your microphone. If you were to use a jack cable, you wouldn't be able to use a condenser microphone. So they're actually really, really useful. And we don't often think about why and how we actually use an XLR cable.
And the point 4, the last bit, we're going to look at polar patterns. All microphones have a different polar pattern. And this simply means the direction in which they pick up sound from and the direction in which they reject sound from. It's really important to know what polar pattern your microphone has, so that you know the direction in which it's going to pick up sound most from and the direction where it's going to reject sound most from. We'll look at 3 different polar patterns in this video and why they are useful. Our first polar pattern is omnidirectional. This means that it picks up sound equally from all around the microphone. This could be really useful if you want to record multiple players, multiple instruments, multiple sounds from different corners of a room, just using one microphone. This technique would have been used in early 50s recording, when they only had one microphone available, so they could capture the whole band. If you wanted a particular instrument or musician or singer to be louder, they would just be closer to the microphone. The next polar pattern we're going to look at is called figure of 8. This would pick up from the front and the back of the microphone, but you'll notice that it rejects from the sides. This is useful if you want to record a duo. You can place 2 musicians opposite each other and capture both sides of the microphone, but rejecting the sides. Our last polar pattern that we are going to look at today is cardioid. Now you'll notice this is just half of a figure of 8. So it will pick up from the front of the microphone and reject directly from the back. The rejection is known as the null. Using the null is just as important as knowing where the microphone will pick up from. Because if there's a sound that you want to reject that you don't want to record, like a bad place in a room, or there's some noise from a machine or your computer or something, you can use that null so that the microphone doesn't capture that sound as much as what it does from the front of the microphone. We'd most commonly use a cardioid pattern to record vocals. So the worksheet that goes with this lesson is on Show My Homework. If you answer all of the questions, refer back to the video if you need help, and then upload a photo or the document of your answers to Show My Homework.